What's up, YouTube? I'm Mike, and today I'm going to be talking about testosterone replacement therapy and how it saved my life. This is going to be a very long video because I'm going to go into how it makes you feel, how to inject it, where I get it, everything. So I'm going to put timestamps in the description below. You can skip ahead or go back and forth, watch it, pick out the parts that interest you most. So right out the gate, the question that everybody is probably curious about is, does it work? How does it make you feel? Well, this is a 1-year review. I started testosterone replacement therapy in October of 2019, and I can tell you that it is possibly the best decision I have ever made in my life. I'm going to get into all of the details in a little bit about why I made it, where I came from, what I was going through. But if you are curious, if you have any doubts, you can expect to see strength gains in the gym, increased muscle mass, amazing libido, tremendous erection quality. The best part of all for me has been the psychological changes that I experienced when getting on the program. The amount of confidence and self-esteem that having optimal optimal testosterone levels provide you has been irreplaceable in my life. Every single relationship I have has been markedly improved from where I started to where I am today. I happen to be in outside sales for a living, and literally my performance at work could be tracked on a graph, and you could see where I was basically flatlined. I was not selling. I was not producing. I was literally like on the ledge, ready to jump, ready to quit my job. My entire life was in doubt. And I got on testosterone replacement therapy, and everything just went crazy. I'm now the number one salesman in our entire company 1 year later. So uh, that's what you can expect in the nutshell. I'm going to get into much more details later. For those of you who care to know why I got on testosterone replacement therapy, 2 years ago in December of 2018, after many months, actually many years, trying the psych med approach to dealing with all of the things that I had going on. I've got ADHD really bad. I had a lot of anxiety. I dealt with depression, insecurity, just a lot of things that were going on with really no good reason. But I'll get to that in a second. I had been taking Adderall and then Dexedrine for my ADHD. I was taking a very high dose of Xanax daily to manage my anxiety. I was taking Lexapro to manage my depression, and I was taking Ambien to get to sleep at night. So I was a walking pharmacy. I'm taking a pill to go to sleep, a pill to stay awake during the day, a pill to not be freaking out, and a pill to put a smile on my face. Like it was a disaster. Every one of those drugs comes with a whole host of side effects. They're all terrible. They're all very hard to manage. And so, like, I was literally propped up by all these drugs. I got off the ADHD meds because that led to other problems in my life. And so I was trying to limp along on antidepressants and sleeping pills. And basically, my entire life was going in the shitter psychologically. Like on the outside, everything was pretty fine. Like I had a good job, a good career. I make good money. I have a wife, 3 kids, family around me, support. Like there was no real tangible reason that I should be feeling as bad as I did. But in December of 2018, I walked into my psychiatrist's office for my regular med check, oil change, basically, visit, and told him candidly that I wanted to die. And he was like, "Well, are you thinking about kill yourself?" And I was like, "No, I'm not going to kill myself. I just kind of hope I get cancer and it takes me out of here. I just don't want to live anymore. I'm miserable. I don't take any enjoyment in life, and I'm just done." And so obviously he was like, "Well, we have a problem." And I assured him that I wasn't going to do anything crazy. And I told him, "Look, like this is not working for me. Like all these meds, we've tried all these different things. Like clearly the psych drugs are not getting it. Like I'm going to try something different." And so I walked out of there. I came home. I told my wife, "I'm done with the meds. I'm going to start lifting weights again. It's the last time I felt good in life in my 20s. And I'm going to try that. And if it doesn't work, then I don't know. And so I started lifting weights, and very quickly things started getting better. Started having better self-esteem, better confidence. Um, I started to, bringing back some of the old muscle that I had as a younger man. I lifted very heavily in my 20s. So I've always been sort of around the fitness industry, but I kind of disappeared for a while when I was going through all the psych med BS. And so I've been tracking my levels my entire life. I have a yearly physical, and I get my testosterone levels checked, and I'd been noticing a decline. So like typically they would be in like the 800, 850 range. And then in my middle 30s on all the psych drugs, I kind of didn't care, and they'd come down a lot. And so after I started lifting again, about 6 months or so into it, I was feeling a lot better, and I sat down with all my paperwork, and I'm looking over all these things, these numbers, and I'm seeing like, 1 year testosterone is like 750, 670, 530. Like there was just a steady decline, as you'd expect for a guy my age. I was 39 years old at the time. And so I'm reading all this information online, and it's saying, yeah, your testosterone falls as you get older. And there's all this information about testosterone replacement therapy. So I go to my general practitioner. I say, Doc, this is what I'm dealing with. My numbers are falling. I don't feel good. I've tried therapists and psych drugs and all of that. It doesn't work. What about testosterone? And he's like, no, absolutely not. At the time, my level was 430 nanograms per deciliter. He's like, nope, you don't get it. You fall within the normal range, and you could go see a urologist, but I'm not gonna recommend it. Like, you're fine. It's not the testosterone. Okay, well, I didn't believe him. I'd been reading too many things online, hearing too many different stories, and so I started looking at different testosterone replacement therapy clinics to see if maybe they would be willing to treat my symptoms. I went to a number of different clinics. They made no promises about allowing me into the program. They said that my levels had to be at some range. They wouldn't really say. But the two things that turned me away from the stereotypical clinic was that, one, they were very expensive. Most were in excess of $300 a month. And you have to go to the clinic every week to get your shot. So you're like literally tethered to this clinic. And it seemed like that was just going to create another problem. Like I was already tethered to going to the shrink and picking up all these meds and timing all these doses. And it was like, this just sounds like more of the same thing. So I started researching online, and I come across this clinic called Royal Men's Medical Center. Like they're popping up at the top of you search testosterone replacement therapy, you get Royal Men's. And so it felt like a strong arm. It was like, this is shady, So I didn't really trust it, but I'm reading through their material. They offer to send the meds direct to your door. It's $200 a month, which is one of the lower prices I'd come across. I think the lowest price I'd come across in all the research I've been doing. And I don't know, it felt very cookie cutter, but they had a good pitch. So I reach out. I guess there's a questionnaire that you fill out online, and it's like standard low T questions, obviously. Like, are you lacking energy? Yes. Do you have low libido? Yes. Do you have erection problems? Yes. Like all of these things. Is your quality of life crap? Yes. So it's like literally I'm going down this checkbox, just every one of them, just about. So you submit this, and then you get contacted by the patient coordinator, and they go over the program with you. And the program is $200 a month. That covers all of your labs and all of your medication. They expect you to be in the program for 6 months. They bill you a month ahead. So you pay $200, and then it's like a month before, I think, or however long before you get your first shipment. And so then you're like, basically you have 2 months in advance to pay. So honestly, when I was talking to the guy on the phone, it's just a guy. He's not a doctor. He's a kind of salesman. It felt a little strong army. I don't know. I was very skeptical. I was very, very skeptical, but it was kind of the best option available. Like I felt like it was the only option available. And so I thought, I've flushed a fortune down the drain on psychiatrists and psych meds. Like, what the hell, give it a shot. So I enrolled in the program. They sent me to get my labs done. They do a little physical, everything came back. My levels were exactly what they were with my doctor, give or take. And so I talked to the doctor, and the doctor. So then they set up a consultation online. It's like Zoom meeting or a phone call. You talk to the doctor, and he explains that their philosophy is not in treating numbers like on a piece of paper, but in treating people and their symptoms, and that range from 300 nanograms to whatever covers this broad range of people, and it's not an answer for everyone. So he explained the course the medication would follow. So if you are interested in Royal Men's Medical Center, this is what you can expect. The standard dose is 200 milligrams per week of testosterone cypionate. They also give you a drug called anastrozole or Arimidex, which is an aromatase inhibitor. If you don't know what that means, basically, when you inject testosterone, your body converts some of the testosterone into estrogen. All men have estrogen in their bodies. We get it through aromatase, which is an enzyme that turns testosterone into estrogen. Different people aromatize at different rates. You may be a low aromatizer, a high aromatizer. It just depends on your anatomy. So to combat that, they give you anastrozole, and it's infused in the testosterone. So I actually have my bottle here. It comes in a box like this. It's got your prescription label, which I won't show you for obvious reasons, on the box. And then on the inside, there's like cotton balls and the testosterone bottle. So I'm at the end of they send it to you there's 8 weeks worth of medicine at a time. So there's the bottle, testosterone cypionate. You can see it says anastrozole, and then there's the oil. So the testosterone is in an oil, which is an injectable form. Cypionate is the ester. It means that basically the testosterone is time release. So the half-life is about 6 to 7 days, which is why you get an injection every 7 days. Also in the kit, you get a box, and it's got everything you need for 8 weeks in it. You've got the testosterone, you've got all of the needles that you need, and then back in the day when I started the program, you got something that was called HCG, which stands for human chorionic gonadotropin. So the other side effect to injecting testosterone is that your body stops producing its own testosterone. Your body sees that you're getting all this testosterone coming in. It goes, well, I don't need to do anything. So it stops making it. Well, primarily testosterone is made in your testicles. So when it stops doing its job, the boys shrink. So a lot of men are insecure about the idea of their testicles shrinking. Plus, there is fear that it could lead to infertility problems. So if you're trying to have kids, they used to give you HCG. Well, the FDA shut that down. So they've replaced it with another drug called gonadorelin, which is supposed to work the same way. I just started the gonadorelin like a month ago, so I'll report back. I have some concerns that it's not working the way the HCG did, but we'll see. So the HCG comes in a separate box, and it has to be reconstituted. I know this sounds complicated, but it really is not once you get into it. It's kind of daunting at first. They have videos on their website that explain a lot of the things that I'm explaining. The gonadorelin, or the HCG, comes in a clear bottle. This obviously says gonadorelin instead of HCG. And the bottle you receive has white powder in it. The reason for that is that this is not stable. It deteriorates over time. It only lasts like 60 days. And so when you receive it in the mail, it is a powder, and then you have a separate bottle that's got sterile water in it, and you inject the water into the powder bottle, which is called reconstituting, and then you get your injectable. So the way the therapy works, when you do it at home through a clinic like Royal Men's Medical Center, is they prescribe you 200 milligrams per week, which is one shot of 1 milliliter of testosterone. What they give you in your box are 8 syringe barrels and assorted needles. There are 2 kinds of needles. One is a big 18 gauge needle, which is used for, you screw that needle onto the barrel like that, and then you put it in the vial and you draw it out. The reason for the big needle is that the oil is very thick. So you can use the smaller needle, but it takes forever for you to try to pull it down into the syringe. So you can see the graduation on there. This one is 1 milliliter. So you need to pull that much oil down into the barrel. So you draw it up with one needle, and then you unscrew that needle, take it off, and put this needle on. And this needle is for injection. This is a 1.5 inch long, 25 gauge needle. Let me show you what that looks like. It's not a small needle. It's a hell of a lot smaller than the drawing syringe, but it is still a pretty big needle. You're instructed to inject this once a week into either your quads or your glutes. The first time I decided to do the quads, and I can't remember, maybe it was the glutes, regardless. The thing to know is that I do not react well to quad injections for whatever reason. Every single time I pin my quads, it gets really red and inflamed and it feels hot. And then a day or so later, I get like a peg leg where I cannot walk. It hurts like hell to flex my leg and I limp around and it's miserable. So obviously I don't want that. So I started injecting my glutes, which I had my wife doing for me because it's kind of awkward to like reach back here and try to get it into your butt cheek. Not to mention the fact that, and I know this sounds terrible, I have a solution to all this in a minute. So when you inject your glutes, there's some nerves back there, and there are also some blood vessels. And so you don't want to put the testosterone in the bloodstream. You want it in the muscle tissue. So you're instructed to fill up, get your injectable down to 1 milliliter, stick it in your butt, and then pull back on the syringe. And if you are in the meat, you'll get a little air bubble go in there. If you're in the vein, then blood will go in there. Then you take it out and try again. I've never actually put it in the vein. I've never had blood come out, but it's just to check to make sure. So when you have to go to pull, it doesn't pull easily. You kind of have to really pull on it to get that little air bubble in there. And if you're having to do that yourself and you're got this needle in your ass and you're trying to hold it in place and pull on the plunger and you're digging around in there and it's a total disaster. So with my wife doing it, it was a lot better, but it's still not terribly comfortable. And one time she hit the nerve. And let me tell you something. You do not want to do that. It felt like normally when you get the injection, you feel a tiny little pinprick, and that's it. You don't feel the needle in your glute at all. It's really rather painless, the injection part. Unless, of course, you hit a nerve, and that feels like you just got jabbed in your ass with like a blunt butter knife, and it just is a pain that burns and radiates down your leg. Very, very uncomfortable. So I started looking around online, like thinking, this can't be, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. This is not fun. I was not looking forward to my injections every week. And I found a lot of bodybuilders who use anabolic steroids talking about like, no, stay away from your glutes and your quads. Like they're just prone to problems. So the solution to this, if you decide to do testosterone replacement therapy, and again, I'm not your doctor. You saw the disclaimer at the beginning. These are my personal experiences. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you what I have discovered over the past year that works for me. Sorry about that. My camera died. So as I was saying, the solution that I've found, again, this is just what works for me, is the gonadorelin or the HCG that I showed you earlier. That is injected with a different needle. So also in your kit are these little insulin pens. This is a 30 gauge, 5/16 of an inch. I'll show you. Little teeny tiny needle. And this needle is used to pin the peptide, the whatever it is, the HCG or the gonadorelin, underneath your skin. So you just take like your fat and you pin it right there. So that is a much, much finer needle, and it prevents the other problem that you get from using this bigger syringe when you pin your glutes, is that it's big enough that over time you'll develop scar tissue, and you keep going in the same area, and then you hit that scar tissue, and that also doesn't feel good. So what I do is I order on Amazon another insulin pen. You in theory you could use this one, but it's very shallow needle, and you really want to get the oil into the muscle so that it can be absorbed well. So I buy on they're very cheap on Amazon, these insulin pens that are 29 gauge, and they're a 1/2 inch needle. So let me show you the difference. This is the needle they want you to stick in your butt, and this is the needle that I use. So you can see the one is much smaller, both in length and diameter. And when you use this smaller needle, what that allows you to do is to inject your delts. So I go in right here in my shoulder on either side, and I alternate each shot. And so it makes it a lot easier, for one, if you're going to do it yourself, you can pin yourself. Plus, this smaller needle really doesn't create any scar tissue. It's way easier. It's effectively painless. You go right in the delt, and then you do your injection. I spread mine around, so I've used this in a number of different places. You can hit either of your delts. I hit my pecs sometimes, like right here or right here. Seems to be better, closer to your sternum, like right in that area. But the overall best location, believe it or not, is actually in your lats. I mean, again, this is just for me, but like right there, that muscle, if you, it's kind of awkward trying to get that on camera, but if you go in right there, and again, that's usually my wife does that for me, it is completely painless. You wouldn't think so, because it seems like it's a kind of soft spot of your body. I don't know if the muscle is less dense back there or what, but going in your lat is by far been the best for me. That being said, I usually, when I'm just injecting a small amount, I usually just hit my shoulder. The second thing that I do to make this even a little bit more manageable is they want you to inject 1 milliliter per week. As I think I was saying in the previous video, the half-life of testosterone cypionate is about 7 days. So when you inject 1 milliliter, what happens is you go from basically zero, and your testosterone level spikes up like that by like day 2.5, and then it starts to fall back off again, like that. And so you go up, and then you go back down to like right here is day 7, where you would inject again. You'd go back up and back down every week, back up, back down. So what that creates is uneven serum concentrations of testosterone. Some people are sensitive to this, so they'll feel good at the beginning of the week, and then at the end of the week, when their numbers start falling, they feel low and they don't feel as good. So one of the things that you can do to not only make the injections easier, but keep your blood levels more stable, is you can pin half the dose 2 times a week. So that's what I do. So I use this little insulin pen, and I pull down 50 units, which is half a milliliter, and I go in this shoulder on Saturday morning, and then I go in this shoulder on Tuesday evening. So that gives me 3.5 days in between each shot, and that seems to keep the levels way more stable, and it gives you a smaller amount of oil to inject, which makes it a lot easier to use these smaller pins because you're going into a smaller muscle. Now, your delt can easily absorb 1 milliliter, but regardless, putting that smaller amount, the body seems to handle it a little bit better. You're less likely to get scar tissue. It's a quicker injection. It's easier to manage the pin, because if you put 1 milliliter in here, then you've got to pull the plunger all the way to there, and then you're trying to figure out how to get this harpoon in your shoulder and get leverage to push that pin in. Whereas if you're injecting half of that, then you've got much less to grip, and it's way easier to get it in your delt yourself. So if you don't have somebody helping you do this, again, I'm not your doctor, but what works for me is to break the dose in half and use a insulin pen. It's way easier. So I avoid all the fears of hitting nerves, hitting blood vessels. When you go in your delt, you don't have to worry about hitting a blood vessel. You go right there on that spot right there. So you don't have to worry about aspirating the needle. You don't have to worry about hitting veins, nerves, none of that. I've had zero problems from hitting my delts. I've had zero problems from my pecs. It's been great. The one thing I will say, if you are just starting testosterone replacement therapy, you may notice some what they call pain at the injection point, or I think that's what it is. So after you inject, when your body's still getting used to it, you'll get sometimes a little bit of soreness. Usually in the very beginning, it may take 4 days to go away, and then you'll notice like as you go on, it's only there for 2 days, and then before long, you'll either have no pain at all or you'll just be a little bit sore. Like I did my injection this morning, so it's a little tiny bit tender right now. That's it. If you move location, so like if you get used to hitting your shoulders and then all of a sudden you decide to hit your pec, you may notice the same thing happens again where the first couple of times you go into that muscle, you get some soreness after the injection, and then that stabilizes after a while. So that's the protocol that Royal Men's puts together. It's really a very common protocol. I think 200 milligrams per milliliter is the max that you get in the United States. You may find a doctor who will write more. I don't know, but that seems to be the max into the range. And for me, that keeps my levels very high. So their goal is to get you to go a little bit high, right? Because again, you've got this peak. And so you may peak a little high on day 2, but the rest of the week, you're in that high normal range. They want to get your levels to like 800 nanograms per deciliter. That's where they want you to be the majority of the week. Being in that high normal range is what's going to lead to the most positive outcomes. So again, to go a little bit more in depth into what this is like. When I started TRT, it takes a little while for it to kick in. So you're probably not going to feel much of anything in week 1, week 2. You may start to feel some effects in week 3. Week 4 is where you seem to start to kind of hit your stride. You may notice, or you may think you notice something right after your injection. I felt, and this could be placebo, it could be all in my head, I don't know, your mileage may vary. I felt like the day of my injection, I felt a little speedy. It was like a little energetic, little something, I don't know. Like I said, probably nothing. There's some websites you can look up. I may link in the description below. If you search how long does it take for testosterone replacement therapy to work, there's one that I'll try to find, and they break down all of the different outcomes that you can expect from TRT and how long it takes. So typically what guys are looking for when they get on TRT is they're looking for libido, erection quality, they're looking for strength and stamina in the gym, they're looking for the ability to build muscle, burn fat, heightened sense of well-being, more confidence. Basically what we're looking for is we want to be 16 again. And I'm here to tell you after a year on TRT, that is a very, very achievable goal. So basically at the 3-week mark for me is when I first started to notice the most pronounced effects. And the first thing that seemed to come on was the libido. My libido, actually, I say libido, was really more the erection quality. And just so you understand, I wasn't impotent before. I mean, my wife and I had a perfectly healthy sex life. It was just that I knew that I was not the man I used to be. In my middle 30s, things started to change a little bit. My levels started going down, as I said earlier. And so I knew how I could perform at a younger age, and I knew I was not up to that level. It wasn't like when I was 16 and I had this open window where sex was just always on my mind and I could just, I could just perform at the drop of a dime. This was a more laborious process, and it felt more like there was a window of opportunity and you better take advantage. And that was really a negative thing for me psychologically. And so at that 3-week mark, that started to change. Now, admittedly, it was already better because with Royal Men's, they give you Viagra in your first kit. So, we would use the Viagra occasionally, just really just to play with it. But I really didn't like the way it made me feel. Like it gave me like I was really flushed face, and it just like I don't know, it wasn't really that pleasant. Um, and the Viagra like makes you able to perform, but it doesn't give you the desire to. So with the TRT, when the testosterone started coming on at about that week 3 period, is when my interest in sex went up even more, but my erection quality was much better. And I'm talking about like that 16-year-old, you could drive nails with this thing kind of quality. And so to have that suddenly start to come back, something that had been gone for so long, that immediately already was a serious boost to confidence and well-being. By about that time as well, the general day-to-day like energy levels and self-esteem are starting to get better. About week 4 is when I really started to notice the strength gains in the gym and the weight gains start to come on. So I was lifting heavily during this entire period. I was a little frustrated earlier because my weight didn't start going up and I wasn't really noticing anything in the gym. And then right about 4 weeks was that time period where you go to the gym and you were benching X amount of weight last week and you lay down on the bench and you put the same amount on and it's like, what? This feels light. And so my lifts went up probably 30 pounds across the board in a relatively short period of time. So like that week 4 to 6, I'm just stacking on plates every time I go. And so again, you've got this performance coming in the bedroom, this performance coming in the gym, and now you're really starting to feel it. So from the 4 week to 8 week mark, I started to see an increase in the scale. Muscle mass started coming around at the and still where like I was staying at a comparable body fat percentage, maybe even getting and feeling a little bit leaner. So by the 8 week mark, libido's in full swing. My performance in the gym is on fire. I'm an animal in the bedroom. I'm feeling better at work, and everything at that point really started to take off. My performance at work, as I mentioned earlier, went through the roof. All of my relationships started to improve. My self confidence started to improve, and then I hit this weird period where somewhere in that 6 to 8 week, I can't remember exactly, the libido went through the roof. Like it had been good before, but this became insane. Like I was insatiable. I was thinking about sex constantly all day long. I'm texting my wife all day. I'm chasing around the house. I mean, for a period of time, it was 2 a day every single day to the point where she's like, whoa, this is too much. Like, we've got to do something about this. Fortunately for her, that did return to more of a normal after a period. I don't know if it was just because I don't know what caused that, but it's apparently not uncommon. Like I've talked to a couple of buddies who have either taken TRT or they've just cycled anabolics, and they said that there's a similar period where your libido is just out of control. That was really, really pleasant. I wish that would stick around a little bit more often. Once you get basically into the swing of things, everything is just really, really, it's fine tuned. The only other problem that I had worth mentioning is, as I said earlier, everybody aromatizes estrogen at a different rate. And so 3 weeks in, about the time that I started noticing libido come on, I had been noticing that my nipples were looking different. My nipples are usually, it's kind of awkward. My nipples are usually very, very small, and they were bigger. They were like bigger around, and they just looked kind of puffy, shiny. Like there was a weird. They just didn't look right. And I emailed Royal Men's and I was like, I don't know, something. My nipples look a little funny, and they were like, well, sometimes your body takes some time to get used to it. Let's wait a little while. By the next week or two, I noticed a lump, or not a lump, but soreness under my right nipple. I emailed the doctor. I emailed my patient coordinator, and he was like, "Yeah, we need to get it looked at." So I emailed the patient coordinator at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. By the first thing in the morning, the next morning, I had an email from the doctor with a requisition to go to LabCorp and get my estrogen checked. So I went to LabCorp that day, walked in, gave blood. I think it was a day or two later for the results to come back. The doctor called. He was like, "Yep, you were right. Your E2 is a little high. E2 being estradiol." And so he said, "We're going to give you more Arimidex to counteract that." So, as I said earlier, you get the anastrozole or the Arimidex that's infused in the injection. And what he did is he added an extra 0.5 milligram in pill form. They overnighted it to me, or it was like first class. I had the meds in like a day and a half. So from the conversation, it was there a day and a half later. And so I started using the Arimidex as prescribed. It took a few weeks, and then the puffiness and the pain subsided. My nipples went back to normal, and since then everything has been smooth sailing. So I know this has been a marathon video. Hopefully you've used the links below to skip through. That in a nutshell, or in a marathon, is everything that you can expect from TRT, especially if you go the Royal Men's Medical Center route. If by some chance I missed something, if you have a question about anything, whether it's the procedure getting signed up, any more details about the way I do my injections, what to expect, anything at all, comments in the section below. I'm happy to respond because I'm telling you, like I said in the very beginning, I was in a really, really dark place in my life, one of the darkest places I've ever been, in fact. And since I got healthier, got into the gym, and got on TRT, it has been just a meteoric rise. I have not felt this good in many, many years. And the beautiful thing about the TRT is it's super, super stable because you're injecting it exogenously. So if you don't get enough sleep one night because you've got something going on at work, or your diet's not perfect, or you overtrain in the gym, or whatever's going on, you don't have those hormonal fluctuations that are natural with your body. And so it allows you to stay way more even tempered, way more even keeled. I experienced no roid rage from this, as some people talk about. Really, just across the board, I feel better in every conceivable way. So if you get the opportunity, definitely look up one of these clinics. Again, do not let your doctor tell you that low normal is acceptable. In my opinion, again, I'm not a doctor. In my opinion, it absolutely is not. I tried going that route and I was miserable. So again, thank you for watching this video. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Comments in the section below, and I'll see you next time.